Have you ever taken an exit off the highway and then couldn't find your way back? No matter how many times I tell this story, people look at me like I'm either lying or losing my mind. But I swear, on everything I love, it happened. I was driving from Little Rock, Arkansas, about 8 hours total. I left early, maybe around 6 a.m., planning to stop once or twice, grab some food, and enjoy the road. And to this day, I can't bring myself to drive through Tennessee without getting chills. My GPS said I had about 3.5 hours left. I remember because I had just passed a rest stop but didn't feel like pulling over. No services listed, no symbols, just the name. But what caught my eye was the sudden urge. I felt like something was pushing me to take that exit. No people, no animals, just silence. I drove for another 5 minutes and saw a wooden sign that read, "Welcome to Dunwich Hollow Estate." I figured I'd wait for the next gas station and grab a sandwich or something. It was the summer of 2017. I was on my way to Asheville, North Carolina, to visit my girlfriend at the time. As I reached the end, the pavement narrowed into a 2-lane country road, lined with thick trees. I could hear something like whispering, but every time I turned down the radio to listen, it stopped. The sign said full serve open, but it looked abandoned. The pumps were crooked. The glass door was cracked. There was an old payphone bolted to the outside wall. The sun seemed to vanish behind the canopy, and the light changed. Not like sunset, but dimmer, as if the day suddenly lost its color. Around 11:30 a.m., I was somewhere on I-40, right in the middle of Tennessee. Long black dress, thin frame, head tilted slightly as if listening to something deep in the woods. I slowed down, rolled down my window a little, and called out, "Ma'am, you okay?" Every turn felt the same, left, right, and left. Curve, and the sky above was now a sickly gray. It was noon, but it looked like dusk. That's when I saw it. A plain green exit sign on the right shoulder, with a name I didn't recognize, Dunwich Hollow, exit 237. I remember thinking, weird name, never heard of it. And then, without really deciding, I turned the wheel. The ramp was longer than I expected, wined and covered in shade. I turned the car around and floored it back the way I came. Except there was no gas station, no barn, no crooked houses, just trees, just road, just fog rolling in, low and fast. Eyes locked on mine, smiling, still thinking it might be a shortcut or a back road to somewhere decent. I kept driving. I passed an old barn, then a couple of decaying houses with busted windows and overgrown yards. I was already uncomfortable, but I figured I'd keep driving and eventually hit another main road. That's when I noticed my phone had no signal. Wearing suspenders and a white shirt stained with what looked like oil or blood. His eyes were open but empty, and he didn't flinch when I honked the horn. Only now she was facing me, and her face was hollow. But suddenly, I was on the highway again, back on I-40. Exit 237 was gone. Not just hard to find, literally gone. I pulled over, shaking, turned on my phone. No eyes, no nose, just a wide, stretched mouth that moved like she was screaming. But no sound came out. Not one bar, not limited, just no service. And the GPS froze. Out of the corner of my eye, just beyond the trees, the woman, standing, waiting, pointing. Then the road changed. Not gradually. I blinked, and the pavement had cracks everywhere. Large ones. The trees on either side had blackened trunks. I passed a gas station, and that's when I saw the woman. She was standing at the edge of the station, facing the trees. She didn't turn around, just raised her hand and pointed. Not at me, not at the road, but at the woods. No path, no break in the trees. Just thick, unnatural silence. I didn't wait to find out more. I hit the gas. The road began to narrow and bend. The trees grew thicker. Then I saw it, the same "Welcome to Dunwich Hollow" sign. Again, I'd been driving in circles. I stopped the car in the middle of the road, heart racing, trying to breathe. After maybe 10 more minutes of desperate driving, I saw a man in the road. He stood still, right in the center, hands at his sides. I swerved around him. Looking in the rearview mirror, I saw something I still can't explain. The man didn't turn to look at me, but his reflection in the mirror did. That's when the road ended. Literally, it stopped at a wall of trees. No signs, no turnoffs, no more road. I stopped the car, jumped out, ran to where the road disappeared, and there was nothing. And then, my car horn blared. Except I wasn't in the car. My name is Kyle Thompson. I'm 32 now, but this happened when I was 25. At the time, I was working as a freelance photographer, traveling across the country for work. It wasn't as glamorous as it sounds most of the time. It was small-town events, real estate shoots, and long, lonely drives between gigs. This particular job had me driving through northern Arizona. No reflective paint, no visible letters, just a rusty rectangle on a leaning post. I slowed down a bit, thinking maybe I'd taken a wrong turn. That's when I noticed something else. My cell signal was gone, completely dead. It wasn't normal fog, though it had a thickness to it, like smoke. My headlights illuminated nothing but swirling white. No signs, no just the same broken road ahead. and the temperature dropped fast. I remember turning off the AC and still seeing my breath inside the car. I was heading from Holbrook to a remote location near the petrified forest, where I was supposed to shoot some promo photos for a new hiking trail. I slammed the brakes. The car skidded a little, but stopped in time. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, but he was gone. Completely vanished. I sat there in shock for maybe a full minute, breathing hard, heart pounding. Then I crept forward again. I didn't know that at the time. All I saw was a shortcut. Nothing fancy, just nature shots, trail markers, that kind of thing. A single pump, a dark office with flickering fluorescent lights, and a vending machine glowing faintly by the entrance. I backed away, heading for the door, but before I reached it, a figure appeared. Like the air itself didn't want me there. It looked abandoned, but the lights were on. I figured maybe they had a phone, or at least someone who could tell me where the hell I was. Trying to find Route 191. My GPS cut out. I left Holbrook around 6 p.m., figuring I'd make the hour-long drive, sleep in my car, and shoot at sunrise. What I didn't realize was that my GPS had taken me down a road that locals apparently avoid after dark, State Route 504. Instead, he turned and walked back into the hallway. I waited, unsure of what to do, heart racing. After a few seconds, I turned and ran out of there. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove off. The door creaked when I opened it, and immediately I was hit with the smell of dust and mildew. Inside, there was no one. A counter with an old cash register, shelves half stocked with dusty snacks, and my headlights started flickering. Then the radio turned on by itself, a light buzzing above, blinking in and out. I called out hello, but got no answer. But the road began to change. The asphalt, which had been smooth and modern, started cracking. Then it turned to patched gravel. Then, after a few more miles, it looked ancient, like it hadn't been repaved in decades. Weeds poked up from the cracks. There were no road markings anymore. No sound though, just light. I sped up. So did the truck. It got closer. I pushed the gas pedal hard as 70, 80, 90 miles per hour, and the truck was still gaining. But when I turned around to look, there was nothing. He wore an old gas station uniform, dark blue, with a name tag that was too faded to read. His skin looked gray. Not pale gray, and his eyes were completely black. Not like dark brown black, like ink, like empty sockets filled with pitch. At first it was a normal two-lane highway, desert on both sides, distant mesas outlined in the fading light. My chest tightened, my hands were numb. I felt like I was going to pass out. The sun dipped below the horizon, and soon I was surrounded by nothing but darkness. I didn't mind it at first. I liked night drives, but somewhere around 7:30 I noticed something odd. Locals told me stories about an old road that used to be there before a pileup killed 13 people, including a gas station attendant and a family of 5 waiting at a bus stop. Route 191. Cars, signs, cell signal. I pulled over and vomited, then cried. My headlights hit a road sign, but the text was completely faded after dark. Still, I kept driving. There was nowhere to turn around, and according to the map, I only had about 20 miles left. That's when the fog rolled in. At first it was a light mist, but within minutes, I couldn't see more than 10 feet ahead. I slowed to a crawl, barely going 20 miles per hour. Then I saw someone standing in the road. A man, right in my lane, maybe 30 feet ahead. And that's when I saw the gas station. It appeared suddenly through the fog, one of those old 1960s style roadside stations. I pulled in and parked. The second I opened the door, the cold hit me like a punch. It felt ... wrong. Not just cold, but heavy. Still, I walked up to the station. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, shuffling footsteps, coming from the hallway behind the counter. I called again. Still no answer. It was a man at least. I think it was. Have you ever been warned not to do something, and done it anyway? Yeah, so did I, and I really wish I hadn't. This happened last fall. I was helping my cousin move from Chicago to a small town in northern Missouri. He bought a cheap fixer-upper out in the middle of nowhere. One of those places with more grain silos than gas stations. He said there was a rickety one-lane bridge a few miles out of town where people used to disappear. The legend goes that back in the 1940s, a woman and her son died when their car skidded off the bridge during a storm. Not because I believed him, but because it reminded me of the ghost stories we used to tell as kids. Still, something about the way Mitch looked when he said it, dead serious, like it wasn't a joke at all, stuck with me. Since then, weird things have happened there, especially if you honk. I stayed for a few days to help him settle in, and on the last night, we went out drinking with some of the locals at a small bar off Route 6. At some point, a guy named Mitch started talking about Old Bridge Road. According to Mitch, if you honk 3 times while crossing the bridge at night, you're inviting them into your car. That story from last night. What are the odds? Everyone laughed. I didn't anyway. I left the next morning before dawn. My cousin was still asleep, and I wanted to hit the highway early. I typed in the route home and started driving. Fog rolled in about 20 minutes in, heavy and low, clinging to the ground like smoke. My GPS suddenly I figured it was construction, didn't think much of it. I heard it. Then I saw the sign, Old Bridge Road. I literally laughed out loud. Seriously, the road was narrow and unmarked, flanked by dead trees and tall grass. And then I saw the bridge. It looked ancient. Wood planks, metal frame, just wide enough for one car. The creek below was swollen from the recent rain, and the fog made it hard to see beyond a few feet. The bridge ended, the road curved, and suddenly, my phone buzzed violently. As I crept forward, something stupid hit me. Why not try it? Just honk 3 times, see what happens. So I did. 1, 2, 3, nothing. No thunder, no ghosts, just silence. I rolled my eyes and kept driving. Tap, tap, tap. I wanted to turn back, but my GPS wouldn't load and the fog had thickened. I kept driving, heart racing. 3 distinct knocks on the rear window. I slammed the brakes. Heart pounding, I turned around, coming from the back seat. My hands were shaking. Nothing. The back seat was empty. Rear window clear. I told myself it was just nerves. I kept going. No signal. I glanced up at the rearview mirror. There was a handprint. I screamed. I swerved off the road and stopped the car. I jumped out, left the door open, and ran down the ditch, panting and nearly in tears. Right in the center of the glass, small liquor shells. I pulled over immediately, jumped out, and checked the back. Nothing there. No footprints, no mud, just the handprint. And when I got back in the car, the passenger door was open. I swear I didn't open it. I always lock my doors when I drive. Still, I slammed it shut and locked everything. Then I started hearing something else. That's how his little brother died. Exact same bridge, exact same night fog, same 3 honks breathing. Not mine, it was slow, raspy. I just gripped the wheel tighter and stared at the road. My eyes were watering. Then I heard a whisper right behind my ear. You shouldn't have honked. That was it. When I finally got the courage to look back, the car was empty. All the doors were closed, lights off, totally still. Eventually I climbed back in, started the engine, and drove without stopping until I reached the main road again, where the fog suddenly lifted, and my phone buzzed back to life. Later I told my cousin. He didn't laugh. He just stared at me and said, Mitch wasn't joking. So, if you're ever driving through northern Missouri and see a road called Old Bridge Road, don't honk. Don't even slow down. Just keep going and never look in the rearview mirror.
Do you believe something can follow you home from a gas station? Because after what happened to me, I'll never stop at one after midnight again. It was late September, and I was driving back from visiting my mom in South Dakota, heading toward Omaha. I'd been on the road for 6 hours straight. There was just one other vehicle, a black pickup truck parked at Pump 4. A man stood beside it, leaning against the bed, staring down at the ground. He didn't move, didn't look up, just stood there. The highway was dark and empty, and around 12:45 a.m., I realized I was almost out of gas. My GPS said there was a 24-hour station 5 miles ahead, so I took the exit. It was an old station. Flickering fluorescent lights, dusty glass booth with a single attendant inside, and only for pumps. I pulled into Pump 2, swiped my card, and started fueling. Everything felt normal, until I looked again. The man at Pump 4 hadn't moved. Not a twitch, not a breath. Just frozen there like a statue. His head was tilted slightly, and he wore a hooded jacket with the hood up, even though it wasn't cold. I tried to ignore it. People are weird, especially late at night. Maybe he was just tired, or drunk, or high. Then the pump clicked. Tank full. I turned to unhook the nozzle, and that's when I saw it. The man was facing me now. Still not moving. Just staring. Dead still. Like we were the only 2 people left on Earth. The buzzing of the lights faded. The air felt heavier, and everything around us went strangely quiet. Then, slowly, he raised his hand and pointed at me. No headlights. No sound at all. It hadn't driven away, it had disappeared. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, my breath coming in short bursts. I told myself it was fatigue, maybe even a hallucination. Long drive, bad lighting, weird vibes. That's all. Exactly. I checked every room. Doors locked. Nobody there. I held the gas nozzle like it was a weapon, but I couldn't move. I couldn't even blink. Not a wave. Not a gesture. Just one finger, aimed right at my chest. I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. Just the quiet hum of the fridge down the hall. Every part of me screamed to run. And then he smiled. Whispers I couldn't quite hear. Scratching sounds from inside the walls. And the smell. The sharp, choking scent of gasoline. Filling my bedroom even though my car was parked outside. not a normal smile. It was too wide, too slow. It looked like he was peeling his face into a grin. He walked to the passenger side of his truck and got in, never breaking eye contact. I shoved the nozzle back into the pump, jumped into my car, locked the doors, and looked over. His truck was empty. No one in the driver's seat. No passenger. Just gone. But I hadn't heard an engine. No door slam. I pulled out of the lot fast, tires screeching, nearly clipping the curb. But when I got home, that's when the real nightmare started. While brushing my teeth that night, I caught something in the mirror. A shape in the hallway behind me. I spun around. Nothing. The next night I heard footsteps in the living room. Then came the shadows, drifting across the walls when no lights were on. 7 days after the gas station, I found something on my kitchen counter. No date, no name. Just 5 words typed in perfect black ink. Pump 4, paid in full. I never told anyone. I burned the receipt and tried to forget, but I can't, because sometimes, especially on cold, rainy nights, I wake up and see him. A man in a hooded jacket standing at the foot of my bed, pointing at me, smiling.
Have you ever driven a road so long and empty that it starts to feel like you're the only person left on Earth? That's how it began for me. My name is Kyle Bennett. I was 29 when this happened. It was late summer, and I was driving from Kansas City to Denver, about a 9-hour trip. There's something peaceful about it. Less noise, fewer distractions, just me and the road. But this time was different. I left around 5 p.m. planning to make most of the drive at night when traffic thins out. I'd never heard of it, but it seemed like a legitimate I've always liked driving at night, but weird bursts of whisper-like noise, like someone breathing heavily right behind the microphone. Then the dashboard lights flickered. I thought maybe the car battery was acting up, but the engine ran fine. The new road was narrow, winding through wide-open farmland with fields stretching endlessly in every direction. There were not even house lights in the distance, just darkness thick and still. Somewhere near the Kansas-Colorado border, my GPS told me to take a detour State Route 84. A blue sign also said, Scenic Byway, no signal, not even a bar. That was when I started feeling watched. It was around 11:30 p.m. when I turned off the highway. He looked like a statue. No flashlight, no phone, just standing alone in the middle of nowhere. About 30 minutes in, I noticed something strange. My radio started cutting out. Not just static. Then the road narrowed further. Grass grew through the pavement. 1 second he was there, the next, gone. No footsteps, no movement into the trees. Nothing. The trees lining the side grew denser, creeping closer to the edge like they were trying to swallow the road. I kept driving, faster now, hands shaking on the wheel. I tried checking my phone for a map. I kept driving, trying to convince myself it was all in my head, but the road began to change. At first it was just the asphalt, cracked and faded, as if no one had driven it in years, with a single pump under a metal awning and a flickering neon open sign on a glass booth. But the building behind it was boarded up. The glass was dirty and smeared, like it hadn't been cleaned in decades. And then I saw it. Headlights off, no movement. It was an old-style sedan, 1970s, maybe brown, rusted. A woman, maybe in her 40s, wearing a pale blue uniform. Her face was blank. She didn't react as I approached, just stared straight ahead like she wasn't really awake. You're not supposed to be on this road. But now that you are, keep driving. Don't stop again, don't look back. The shadows from the overhead lights seemed longer, darker, heavier. But what chilled me wasn't the car itself. A car, parked on the shoulder, facing me. It was the man standing beside it. He wasn't doing anything, just standing, perfectly still, with his back to me, head tilted slightly down. I didn't care if the road was cracked or narrow or ended at a cliff. I just drove. No sound, no movement, just there, staring through the back windshield. Not even when the radio turned itself on and played an old country song, in reverse. I slowed down as I passed, trying to get a better look, but as my headlights swept over him, he disappeared. She turned her chair away and shut off the lights in the booth. I burst out onto Interstate 70 like I was escaping from another world. Locals say there's no scenic byway out that way. No gas station either. I mean it. My heart slammed in my chest. 15 minutes later, I saw something else. A gas station. At first I felt relief. Finally, somewhere with people. Light a phone signal maybe. But as I got closer, my relief vanished. The station looked wrong. It had the old-fashioned look of 1950s stations. Still, I pulled in. My tank was low, and I had no idea how far I was from the highway. There was a single figure in the booth. I knocked on the glass. "Excuse me, I think I'm lost. Is this the right road to Denver?" She blinked once, slowly, then spoke. "If you've already passed the man by the brown car, It's too late. I froze. What? Her voice was flat. That's all she said. I stood there, heart pounding. The temperature had dropped. The wind had gone still. I ran back to my car. When I looked in my rearview mirror to back out of the lot, I saw him, the man by the brown car. He was standing just behind my car now. I didn't turn around. I hit the gas. Tires screeched. I tore out of the lot, back onto the blacktop. I didn't stop. Not when my headlights started flickering. Not when I passed the same mile marker 3 times. Not when I heard tapping on the back window I just drove. It wasn't until 3:17 a.m. that I finally saw lights. Real lights. A highway sign, civilization. I never found that road again. GPS doesn't list Route 84 anymore. But I know what I saw, and I'll never take a heritage detour again. Ever. Have you ever driven over a bridge that no longer exists? I hadn't either. Until one night last winter, when I took a shortcut home through rural Pennsylvania. Since that night, I've stopped trusting road signs or shortcuts. Last January, I had to drive home late after picking up an extra shift at a clinic in Lancaster. It was almost 1 a.m., snowing lightly, and I was exhausted. I just wanted to get home, crawl into bed, and sleep. My name is Madison Clark. I'm a nurse in Scranton. My GPS showed my regular route taking nearly 3 hours. But just as I reached a fork in the road, a green road sign caught my eye. Mill Creek Bridge to 6 miles. Faster route to Scranton. I'd never taken that route before, but I knew Mill Creek was an old back road people used to take before the highway was built. It sounded quaint, peaceful even, and fast. I was sold, so I turned off the main road and headed into the woods. The snow picked up. No signs, just my car, the dark, and snowflakes drifting through the beams like dust. Tall trees pressed in on either side. My headlights barely reached the edge of the shoulder. There were no houses. About 10 minutes in, I saw the first one. An old, rusted sign, almost clawing at the car, but I pressed on. Bridge ahead, use caution. I slowed. The road was narrowing, and the trees were getting closer. Eventually I saw it, the bridge. A narrow steel truss bridge with wooden planks and rusted railings. A lantern flickered on the far end, swaying like it was barely hanging on. I paused at the entrance. It looked ancient. My instinct said no. I called out you, but my logic said it was fine. The bridge wasn't blocked off. There were no warning barriers, and I was tired. He didn't even flinch. Wasn't right, it looked like a mask, stretched and sagging. His mouth was too wide. His eyes were completely black, like ink spilled in water. And then, without a word, he stepped off the side of the bridge, into the darkness below. I didn't want to hit him, but I needed to pass. When I was about 10 feet away, the figure finally moved. Slowly, deliberately. As I neared the center, the car started to shake slightly. Not violently, but just enough to make me grip the wheel tighter. The tires bumped loudly over the old wood. The wind picked up, and then I saw a figure. And my car was sitting in the middle of it. Behind me, whispering, breathing, at the end of the bridge under the swaying lantern stood a man in a long coat, facing away from me. I honked. No reaction. I don't remember how I got in or how I turned it around, but somehow I did. The tires screeched on dirt, not wood, and I sped back the way I came. Face as I rolled down my window. Just a bit. Cold air rushed in. Just an empty field and a wooden sign, half buried in snow, slowly sinking into nothing. Still nothing. I crept forward slowly. He turned to face me. His face, some stared, others wept. I screamed. I jumped out of the car and ran to the edge, heart pounding, expecting to see him in the water. But there was no water. There was no river. Parked and locked every door. There was no bridge. Just dry, cracked earth and twisted rebar where the bridge should have been. Hovering, I stumbled backward. That's when I heard voices. I turned and saw the trees were full of eyes. Some were missing mouths. Others had no noses. I bolted for the car. I didn't stop driving until I reached the main road again. When I looked in the rearview mirror, there was no road behind me. I got home shaking. The next morning, I tried to find the shortcut again. There is no Mill Creek Bridge. It collapsed in 1996. Took 3 cars with it. 6 people died. No road leads there anymore. So whatever I drove across that night wasn't a bridge, and whatever stood waiting for me on the other side still is.